This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Close race in U.S. elections as both sides predict wins. China's President Xi Jinping calls for a more open global economy. And Ethiopia declares a state of emergency in the Tigray region. Hello and a very warm welcome to you wherever you're joining us. This is Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Uche Okoronko joins me now with your business headlines.
Thank you, Mahia. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. 12,000 jobs, or rather 120,000 jobs, are on the line as South Africa switches focus to renewable energy. And the COVID-19 pandemic causes further delays to Nigeria's infrastructure projects. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it is back to you, Mahia.
Uche, thank you. Well, let's begin with the U.S. election results. The race is too close to call in several critical states. Here are where things stand now. At the moment, the AP reports Democratic challenger Joe Biden is leading with 238 electoral votes. A candidate needs 270 votes to win the presidency. President Donald Trump has 213 right now. The AP tally shows Biden has taken the lead in Wisconsin and Michigan. Georgia is tipping towards Trump. The outstanding ballots are mostly mail-in votes, and in the state of Pennsylvania, officials say they won't be finished counting until Friday. Well, let's get you the very latest from our Washington correspondent, Roy Rottenberg. Roy, just give us a roundup of the race to the White House so far.
Yeah, it was quite a remarkable evening. All eyes at first on Florida, which the Biden camp was hoping to flip blue. That very early on became clear that wouldn't happen as the votes in Miami-Dade County simply weren't coming in for Biden in the margins that we saw for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama before him. Then we saw the Trump team that was hoping to flip states like New Hampshire and Minnesota to red weren't getting those either. Where we finally saw some action was when Arizona on the west was called for Joe Biden, flipping the state blue and giving him those crucial votes, those electoral votes, and really opening up a path to him. There are still a number of battleground states where we could see some litigation, those votes coming in. States like Georgia, Pennsylvania, Biden making a big push and edging ahead now in places like Michigan and Wisconsin, places that Hillary Clinton lost before him. This is the blue wall that people have talked about that Biden's trying to rebuild after Trump smashed it in 2016. If you're sitting in the Biden camp right now, you're feeling very good with the way things are going. The Trump camp a little bit agitated by the ongoing counting. Both of the candidates spoke following Election Day, Biden speaking late on Tuesday night, Donald Trump speaking in the early hours of Wednesday morning. Let's have a listen.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop.
Look, you know, we could know the results as early as tomorrow morning, but it may take a little longer. As I've said all along, it's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome. And I want to thank every one of you who came out and voted in this election.
And we do expect to hear from Biden later in the day. His campaign says he will be addressing the nation. Donald Trump is also out there. He's been on Twitter trying to undermine some of these mail-in ballots that are being counted, questioning the advantage, the gap that's now leaning towards Joe Biden. We'll see how the day progresses, of course, as everybody is watching these results.
Indeed, Rui, both candidates speaking in the early hours of the morning, but President Donald Trump, as mentioned, has suggested that he will go to the Supreme Court to challenge the election outcome. What happens in the coming days then?
Yeah, you know, we know that both sides had lawyered up. Trump made that comment. You know, we should point out that you don't just go to the Supreme Court. I mean, it's not like popping into the shop on the way home. There's a process for doing so, but we do expect legal challenges in several places, notably in Pennsylvania. But if Biden's margin grows as it has been in the last hour or two, we saw a margin growing in Wisconsin, for example, more votes coming in Michigan, in places like Wayne County, Detroit, that really put Obama over the edge in 2008 and 2012. If those votes keep coming in, we're going to see some of these legal challenges in places that aren't necessarily relevant to his path to 220. But again, I mean, there are so many varying factors here. But again, if you're in the Biden camp right now, you are very comfortable with the direction that this is heading.
All right, Rui, thank you very much for that. CGTN's Rui Rottenberg joining us live from the United States on the sidelines of the U.S. election. Well, the elections are not just being followed by Americans, but by millions across the world. A change in U.S. foreign policy will affect how the country relates with the rest of the world. To discuss the impact of the elections on Africa, we're now joined by Amira El Sayed, who is a political analyst and editor at the Egyptian Gazette in Cairo. Amira, what do you make of the results so far?
Look, now the whole world is following up the nail-biting presidential race in the United States, and we can say based on the outcomes of or the initial vote count that the race is on a knife edge. But finally, the swing states, it will determine who will win the election. Though we cannot confirm 100% who will be the upcoming president of the United States, we have found that both presidential candidates confirmed that they won the election. For example, the former vice president and presidential candidate Joe Biden said that we are on a track to win the elections. On the other hand, we have Trump said that announced that he won the elections, and he said that accused his opponents of stealing the elections. So in light of these statements, we can say that a legal fight may be in the upcoming period, may occur in the upcoming period, especially that Trump said that the election will end in the Supreme Court. So maybe there will be potential recounts, as it happened in 2000 elections, when the whole election was ultimately decided by the Supreme Court and George W. Bush won the election. So we have to wait and see what will happen.
And Amira, what has Trump's presidency meant for Africa over the last 4 years, and what should we then expect if he wins another term?
Look, it's not about Republicans or Democrats. The Africans want to see actions, not just words. So if we are trying to analyze the last period, we have seen certain actions that have made by Trump show that he has a great interest in Africa. For example, Prosperous Africa initiative that seeks to boost economic ties with Africa is considered a step forward. We have seen that Melania Trump has paid 4 goodwill visits to Africa. On the other hand, there are certain decisions that were taken that may have a negative impact on Africa. For example, banning the issuance of visas for some African countries also have provoked controversy and is considered like an attack on Africans. And also the withdrawal of the United States from the Paris Agreement. And we know that Africa is highly exposed and vulnerable to the impact of climate change. So it have a negative impact on Africa in long term. So we have seen many actions that has been taken. We can say it's not in the favor for Africa. On the other hand, if we analyze the statements of Joe Biden, we have seen that he said that America's first policy is an isolationist policy, and he's trying to adopt more flexible and open policies. So as I mentioned, that here in Africa, we have to trust actions, not just words.
All right, Amira, thank you very much for that. Amira El Sayed, who is a political analyst, joining us live from Egypt. Let me rope in Professor Anthony Kila, who is director at the Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies in Lagos, Nigeria. Professor, what would a Joe Biden presidency mean for Africa? That is, if he does go on and win.
Well, I think if Joe Biden goes ahead to win the election, he is expressing his manifesto that he will change some of Trump's policies. I think overall, Joe Biden comes across as sort of more cosmopolitan and more outward looking than Trump. Trump stands for America first at the detriment and regardless of other parts of the world. I think Joe Biden's administration would try to be more of a collaboration kind of administration. One, because it's Democrat, two, because it's Joe Biden, and three, because he has said so on his election. So what we should expect from a Joe Biden in terms of his external policies, his foreign policy, is to try to bridge better gaps and improve the image of the United States. He's going to have a limit in the sense that whichever way he wins, his victory is going to be a fractured victory. There is a very sizable amount of Americans that did not vote for him and that seem to endorse what Trump stands for. So he's going to try to strike a balance between following his own vision of being an internationalist and not alienating those that did not vote for him. So to that extent, in terms of policy, we should expect more of internationalization and more cosmopolitan bridge building in terms of foreign policies. In terms of character and approach, we should expect something more humane from Joe Biden. One, because that is his manifesto and his philosophy. Two, because he has a duty to unite a fractured nation.
Professor, let me just jump in there and ask you from the other end very briefly, what then would Trump's presidency mean if he does go on and win for the next 4 years, and what has it meant for Africa, rather briefly?
Well, I think if President Trump continues to be head of the American administration, with the election of today, the results we're going to see, his position has been validated. So he's going to push further. But one thing we must know is that unlike domestic policies, foreign policies as a continuum, Trump has said a lot of things, but in practice, he has not really broken off from the American tradition. So because foreign policies are more complex, they have a lot of consequences, and they're more institutionalized. So we know, as Amira was saying, we know very well that Trump is not a man of the environment. That is true. But that notwithstanding, he's not going to wake up and cancel everything. Trump is not the man that says, I want to go and work with Africa or take leading steps in developing other countries. You know, but that said, once you have your first term and you're going for your second term, the tendency is to look for a legacy. So we might get surprises from there.
All right, Professor, thank you very much for that. Professor Anthony Kila, who is a director at the Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies, joining us live there from Lagos. Now moving away from the U.S. elections, the third China International Import Expo will get underway in Shanghai tomorrow. President Xi Jinping has delivered remarks in the opening ceremony. He's called on countries to cooperate in building an open, inclusive, and balanced economy.
The pandemic reminds us that all countries are a community with a shared future, and no one can stand alone in the face of major crises. We must adhere to the concept of win-win cooperation, prioritize the common interests of all countries, and promote economic globalization in a more open, inclusive, balanced, and win-win way.
Well, President Xi said China will push for more reforms to open up its own economy. He said China will continue to improve its business environment and boost cooperation with other countries. This year's trade show runs until next Tuesday. Shanghai is gearing up to receive some 400,000 visitors, and around 4,000 companies from around the world have brought their products to the Chinese market. Organizers say stringent pandemic prevention and control measures will be observed throughout the event. Well, Kenyan artisans are seeking to harness Chinese technology to improve their creativity and productivity. That is, according to Richard Muteti, who is the chairman of the Kenya National Jua Kali Association. In a conversation with CGTN's Nick Mudimba, Muteti insists that good finishing is the game changer in the sector. Let's have a listen.
When we talk about issues of competitiveness and issues of quality of the products that are produced by the Kenyan artisans or the Jua Kali sector, the issue that we have realized is that, number one, the artisans are skilled. They are producing multiple products in this country that are being consumed locally. The only problem comes when they are matched or compared against the region and internationally. One of the complaints of the market is that Jua Kali products are not of good quality and are not of good standard, and they're not well packaged. And if you look at it, if you look at a hammer from Asia and you look at a hammer from our Kamukunji area, you will see the difference. Ours is a bit ugly, but it works. The one from Asia or anywhere else is very well packaged, but is very short-lived. So what we have realized, what we are addressing at the moment are three key things, among others. You know, a technology to the artisans so that they improve their ways of doing things. We are addressing issues of access to market. One of the biggest opportunity that we would get through the interaction with the Chinese system is, number one, to get access for finishing tools. If you look at our products, why it is not very well packaged and finished is because our people lack modern tools. And if you look at the Chinese market, they have even small tools for finishing. If you look at the quality and product of their woodwork products or metal or even tools, you'll see the difference. So we, as a federation, we were looking for opportunities on how we can expose our artisans to the Chinese system. Number one, we'd like to learn how their cottage industry is structured and how it thrives. Number two, we'd like to see how if we can have a relationship that enables our artisans to access those tools or even to assemble those tools here for our artisans. I'm aware, and I have gone to China through a program that I'm involved in. I'm a member of the Regional Steering Committee of a World Bank program called ESTRIP that is meant to open up the TVET system in the country, modernize it, and even access it more for students technologically. So what we are looking for is technology transfer and exposure.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. It's time for us to take a short break. Here's what's coming up. Ethiopia declares a state of emergency in the Tigray region. And Libyan Joint Military Committee agrees on framework for a permanent ceasefire.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent, to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Ahmed, Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's turn to Ethiopia now, where Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has declared a state of emergency in the northern Tigray region. The directive follows accusations that forces of the regional Tigray state attacked the Ethiopian military. Abiy says that illegal and violent activities in the region are a threat to the constitution and constitutional order. Earlier, Abiy had ordered the military to begin missions in the area. This was preceded by an overnight confrontation between the military and the opposition-led local government.
Today, treasonous Ethiopians have attacked Ethiopia. Ethiopia's feeding hands and breasts have been beaten. For the last 20 years, the defense forces that has been defending its country and people has been attacked in different places, including Mekelle town. The attack is waged by these treasonous individuals and their forces. The Ethiopian National Defense Forces have been ordered to defend the sovereignty and people of its country. The time has come for this negative force to forever perish.
Well, let's get more insights into that story. We're now joined by CGTN correspondent Girum Chala. He joins us live from Addis Ababa. Girum, can you give us an update on the situation on the ground there?
Good evening, Maya, from the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa, where in the north the confrontation between the Ethiopian Defense Forces and that of the Tigray Regional State Special Forces has continued all day today. Several reports are coming out, especially the Tigray Regional State and Amhara Regional State bordering towns have been seeing some kind of strong conflict, and gunfires are also continuing to be heard, heavy gunfires this time around. And earlier today, the Deputy Prime Minister of the country, Demeke Mekonnen, and the State Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Redwan Hussein, have jointly gave us a press conference. And in that press conference, the Deputy Prime Minister said that the treasonous Tigray Regional State leadership has been sabotaging the reform in this country, and this mission, the military mission that is being undertaken at the moment, which by the way, according to the government, was triggered by the special force attack of the defense forces, is vital to guarantee peace and security in the country and also have a constitutional order in the nation. Redwan Hussein, the state minister, who's also going to be in charge of communications of this situation at the moment, said that as much as possible precautionary measures will be taken to minimize the number of casualties in that regional state, because remember, this is happening in the same country between the federal government, which is in Addis Ababa, and also the regional state. Some people are calling it the regional state has become rogue, and this needs to be done. And that's what the state minister was talking about. Minimizing casualties is important while undertaking this important mission, he said. From the Tigray regional state's side, they are saying that this is still unlawful, unconstitutional. This was not supposed to happen, but they are still saying that they will fight and defend the sovereignty of that regional state, and they have asked their own people to fight alongside them. Now, this is really a serious situation in the country, and so many people are worried about it. Earlier today, the Council of Ministers has already decreed Tigray as a state under emergency, and for the next 6 months the state of emergency will be sustained. By the way, Mahia, earlier today we've been trying to update you some of the calls being made by the international community. The African Union, the US government, and others are also calling for calm and dialogue to be given space so that this kind of conflict can be avoided, because it could go to another level and could be also a civil war in this Eastern African nation. So things are not really de-escalating at the moment, but we're also hoping to hear some more in the morning. This is what we have so far, Mai.
All right, Girum, thank you for bringing us the latest on the situation there. CGTN's Girum Chala speaking to us live from Addis Ababa. Well, heading to North Africa now, military representatives from Libya's two main rival factions are meeting this week to agree on a framework for a permanent ceasefire. The delegates will also discuss unifying security forces in the east and west, including those troops guarding petroleum facilities. CGTN's Adel Mahroui has more details.
The talks in Ghadames city, in the southwest of the Libyan capital Tripoli, are still in their second day. Yet they have recorded some of the biggest steps towards resolving the crisis in the country. They are the first military meetings that the UN has held inside Libya, providing a suitable environment for local discussions seeking homegrown solutions.
This meeting has never been held in Libya since the civil war intensified. It's a great success and a sign of hope that military personnel could bring a solution. That's because a political solution in Libya is tied to success in the military talks.
The UN used to label this negotiation track the 5+5 Military Commission because it included 5 senior military officers from both the Libyan National Army and the Government of National Accord. In Ghadames, participants agreed to change the name to the Joint Military Commission, a symbolic gesture portraying the first unity among Libyans.
It's an indication from the UN that there has been significant progress, but such a description of the Commission cannot be generalized. That's because they have not been able so far to agree on the disarmament of the militias or expelling the mercenaries. Some militias still reject the Geneva talks outcomes, and that means that they can interrupt the ongoing progress. We must not conclude that the military factions have a united vision until the militias issue is resolved.
So far, the factions have agreed to make Sirt the home of the Joint Military Commission's central management and future meetings.
Libyan military leaders have also agreed to create a joint task force to eradicate landmines spread between the territories dividing the east and the west. And the United Nations will be responsible for the supervision. And they're currently discussing the role and the authority that the Joint Security Committee should have to be effective in Libya. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Health authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo say the Ebola outbreak in the northwestern province of Equateur is now under control. The province has gone for 35 days without recording a new case, raising hopes among medics that the outbreak may be soon declared over. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The spread of the Ebola outbreak in the northwest of the DRC has slowed significantly over the past 2 months. Many of the health centers there no longer have any patients. The disease broke out in the dense rainforest of Mbandaka in June. The poor road network posed serious logistical challenges for health workers. But Congolese health officials are now optimistic about bringing it to an end.
The
situation is now under control. We are continuing to fight the Ebola outbreak until we end it. The outbreak was announced in June. We've recorded 130 cases and 55 deaths so far. We've now gone for 35 days without recording a new case. We are left with a few days to declare the outbreak over.
The outbreak can only be declared over after 42 days have elapsed since the last patient tests negative. The decline in cases has been attributed to the availability of vaccines and treatments. According to the World Health Organization, 40,000 people have been vaccinated in the northwest of the DRC since the beginning of the outbreak. This is the 11th Ebola outbreak to occur in the DRC since 1976. The previous epidemic in the east was the worst in the country's history, with more than 2,200 deaths recorded. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
You're watching Africa Live. Here is a recap of our top stories this hour. The race to the White House is too close to call in several critical states. At the moment, the Associated Press reports that Democratic challenger Joe Biden is leading with 238 electoral votes, while President Donald Trump has 213. The AP tally shows Biden has taken the lead in Wisconsin and Michigan. Georgia is now tipping towards Trump. The third China International Import Expo will get underway in Shanghai tomorrow. President Xi Jinping has delivered remarks in the opening ceremony. He's called on countries to cooperate in building an open, inclusive and balanced economy. And Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has declared a state of emergency in the northern Tigray region. The directive follows reports that soldiers of the regional state administration attacked an Ethiopian military base. Abiy says that illegal and violent activities in the Tigray region were a threat to the constitution and constitutional order. Earlier, Abiy had ordered the military to begin missions in the area. And those are your top stories. Well, let's now go to Uche with the latest business headlines.
Thanks, Mahia. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. About 120,000 jobs on the line as South Africa switches focus to renewable energy. And the COVID-19 pandemic causes further delays to Nigeria's infrastructure projects.
Taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Well, let's start off in South Africa. A drive to shift the country's electricity production to renewable energy threatens as many as 120,000 jobs at coal mines and power plants that use the fuel. Now, a research consultancy firm says the transition could also threaten economic activity in 4 municipalities with a population of more than 2.3 million people. Now, South Africa produces almost all of its electricity from a suite of coal-fired power plants, which are run by Eskom in Mpumalanga. In the Emalaheni municipal area, coal-related activities make up about 44% of the economy. Of course, coal mines and power stations are more labor-intensive than renewable energy plants. Now, Mpumalanga will also face competition from other provinces for the siting of solar power plants. The Northern Cape could be given the first priority as it has more arid climate as well as clearer skies. And still in South Africa, the government has backed a plan to regulate and empower the taxi industry. The sector is a key part of the country's transportation sector. Now, of course, taxis move more than 16 million people every day. And according to President Cyril Ramaphosa, the South African government is trying to address the problem of inadequate public transport, and that's amid rising violence that has badly affected taxi operators in the country. Here's CGTN's Yolisa Njamela with more.
The vast majority of South Africans do not have access to private cars. This means that the provision of efficient, reliable, safe, and affordable public transport is critical to the people's everyday lives. The taxi industry is the lifeblood of this country's public transport system. Since the late 1970s, it has served South Africans by providing an accessible means of public transit in nearly every corner of the country. The vast majority of public transport commuters use taxis, followed by buses and trains. The industry is a major source of business creation with approximately 150,000 taxi business owners in operation, but it remains unregulated. And it's an industry that has often been beset with many challenges that have tarnished its reputation. These include taxi wars that affect the commuters. It's also an industry that often disregards the law.
Unity remains a challenge in the taxi industry, and achieving such unity will play a pivotal role in ensuring peace and a safe environment for commuters, drivers, and other road users.
Government and the taxi industry have now gathered to find ways to reform the sector. In a recently held gathering, various stakeholders agreed that the industry needs to be regulated and that government will appoint a task team to ensure the success of this task.
The task team that I'm going to set up will continue to negotiate on those particular issues we don't agree on. It's not like we come here with a gun to the taxi industry to agree on these issues. That's the first thing. So we are agreed now on this question of formalization in terms of how, and it's not like something that must happen after 10 years.
Minister Mbalula says the task team will see to the implementation of the resolutions and that a new and improved taxi industry will be here by April next year. While taxis remain the main mode of public transportation here in South Africa, over the past few years, government has introduced other efficient and reliable public transportation modes. Those include Gautrain and Rea Vaya buses. The Rea Vaya is a bus rapid transit system in Johannesburg and surrounding areas, while the Gautrain is a mass rapid transit railway system. It was constructed in an effort to address the heavy traffic problem in and around Johannesburg and capital Pretoria in Gauteng province. Yulisa Njabela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And heading to Nigeria now, despite the easing of restrictions, the COVID-19 pandemic has slowed down some infrastructure projects in the country. According to the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, many construction workers are not confident that they will fully resume work on project sites. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus with that report.
If there's one signature infrastructure project in Nigeria that has been badly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, it is the country's railway project, specifically the $1.6 billion Lagos-Ibadan railway project. The 156-kilometer railway line construction was originally scheduled for completion in April, but with the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's now been moved to the end of the year.
We cannot be in a hurry and endanger our workers' lives. So I think it's better to wait. As they say, it's better that you are late than to become delayed.
As it is with government projects, so it is with private ones. Shortly after the outbreak of the pandemic in Nigeria, the government shut down all construction sites as a means to check the spread of the disease. And even though it's been several weeks now since construction sites were allowed to reopen, developers are counting their cost.
We're developing an estate. It's a beachside estate, and it's basically site and services. Now, the COVID has literally changed our delivery timelines. And being a project that is on a bank loan, it's really been very difficult. And right now we're trying to look for how to make up lost time, and make sure that we're able to deliver what we promised to our subscribers. So it's really been tough for everybody. And just when we're getting off that, we got into the whole protests and lockdown again. So it's really been a turbulent year.
The drastic impact of COVID-19 pandemic on infrastructure has been very devastating. I'll put them into three categories. One is the development of infrastructure, two is the construction of infrastructure, and three is the operations in the construction of infrastructure in Nigeria. in the three categories have been grossly affected by the pandemic and the lack of work to be done during the period in which the pandemic have ravaged the whole world.
For now, work is yet to fully resume at many infrastructure project sites across the country. Added to that is the devaluation of the local currency, which has driven up the cost of construction.
One of the major challenges on projects right now is the foreign exchange. So a lot of procurement work has to be redone in terms of the projects, re-evaluation of the projects to know whether the costs that were put on projects before the pandemic started is also being worked on to know whether the cost implication is going to be able to go around the projects that has been done.
It's indeed a tough time for infrastructure development at the moment. Experts say it will be a while before some sense of normality returns to one's thriving industry. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
And to some international news now. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has promised to do whatever it takes to support British businesses and to help them bounce back from the coronavirus pandemic. Now, Johnson also apologized to business owners and thanked them for their heroic efforts in adapting their workplaces. From Thursday, all non-essential shops, pubs and restaurants in England will close for 4 weeks, except where they serve takeaway food. Now, this is all in a bid to stem the spread of the coronavirus. The Prime Minister's comments come as Britain looks on course to enter a double-dip recession this winter.
We want to get the R down, get the epidemic halving again, to get this country moving again and get this economy motoring. And as we do that, we will be with you, with British business, as we have been throughout, with over £200 billion worth of support already, coronavirus bills, furlough, you name it, bounce back loans. We will do whatever it takes to back British business. Because I know that when the recovery comes, and it will come, it will happen entirely thanks to the efforts of the people who are watching me now, all of us, on this Zoom call today.
And shifting focus now, advanced computing is viewed as critical to all of the world's technologies of the future. Now, in China's Hunan province, experts have been discussing hot topics in the industry, from the rise of remote medical care amidst the coronavirus pandemic to the role of chips in an age of technological self-reliance. Well, Lu Sirui has more from the 2020 World Computer Congress.
Top developers and computer experts are gathering in Changsha, Hunan province, to discuss developments in the industry. As society goes increasingly digital, they say the ability of computers will decide how far technologies can develop. Officials also say the coronavirus pandemic has boosted remote medical and educational programs.
China's computing industry has grown steadily and overcome the adverse effects of weak markets. The production of major products in the industry remains stable, with China's microcomputer production growing by 5.6% from January to September. China's established a complete computer manufacturing system, supplying more than 90% of the world's computer products.
China is facing serious challenges as the U.S. seeks to decouple in some key areas in the technological field. In response, experts from the chip industry say China needs to improve its system for producing them to gain resilience.
If we pay more attention to the construction of the system, we can resist greater risks. Currently, we might not be able to develop high-precision chips, but we should make good use of lower-end products. Through the construction of enhanced systems and the improvement of software and hardware systems, we can basically meet our own needs in terms of digitization and information.
The 2020 World Computer Congress have 5 thematic forums covering issues ranging from 5G tech and the industrial internet to cybersecurity. Lu Sirui, CGTN, Hunan Province.
Well, that is all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up later on Global Business Africa, we'll continue our coverage on vote counting in the U.S. as both President Donald Trump and Joe Biden predict a win. Now, of course, Mahia Mutua will be back with more news after the short break.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
the greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. Sudan's capital, Khartoum, hosted its first unisex fashion show since the ouster of Omar al-Bashir from leadership. Female and male models paraded down the catwalk together, a first since the former ruler seized power more than 3 decades ago. CGTN's Wanja Mungai reports.
For the first time, both men and women paraded down the catwalk, a scene that was close to impossible under former President Omar al-Bashir's regime.
In the past, during Omar al-Bashir's regime, it was very difficult to organize an event like this one, or to get the government's authorization. Society and the government would not accept such a show.
This event is part of the change that happened in Sudan. In the past, there were many things buried inside a person that could not be expressed. And now, through events like these, people can let these things out.
Models who took part in the colorful event say they're proud of the current government as they're now able to express themselves through the runway.
I participated in the show because it will reflect our civilization and our new life. We will benefit from it in the future. Such events didn't used to happen in Sudan because of the occurring problems, which is why this is a new step for us. It will benefit our country in the future.
Shows are like an indication of efforts by the transitional government to give Sudan a new face. Residents are now able to exercise freedom of expression, unlike the olden days. Manja Mungai, CGTN.
And here's what's coming up in the sports. The Court of Arbitration for Sport dismisses Kaizer Chiefs' appeal against a 2-window transfer ban.
How would you create your legend?